I'm going to take a call from David in Oregon, how do I deal with people who bring up spirituality in group settings? David, you're on the air with Objectively Dan and Johnny P.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Super excited, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Cool, man.
I have this issue where I do find it absolutely abhorrent when people hold beliefs and they can't really say why they hold those beliefs. Mm-hmm. And like I'm a student of the Socratic method. I even taught the Socratic method to technicians to help with troubleshooting problems. But how do you guys, when you're in a group and somebody just starts off, and you know that this isn't an appropriate time to like say anything, how do you stop yourself? Because sometimes I just have a problem to not go, well, how do you support that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the first thing to realize is that thing that you have right there is a value, and it is a subjective value. And when I mean a subjective value, it is something that you care about, and other people just might not care about as much. So with that in mind, you have to be patient with knowing that like you have a certain sense of what's acceptable for you that may not be acceptable for other people. It's like people who are okay with leaving their shoes on in the house versus taking their socks off or something. You're like that's something that's going to be okay for some people and not okay for others. And if we just kind of like impose our sense of values onto other people all the time, you know, that it in itself can make a harsh vibe when you're trying to have a conversation with people, right? Even though I would agree with you, yes, like it annoys me too when other people don't use what I would consider good reasoning, right, for the kind of beliefs they have, or at least have a good origin or starting point. But we just got to recognize that this value in particular is one that I've had to cultivate over the years, okay? Because I did not have that. Again, I grew up, you know, as a Christian and just kind of accepted the beliefs of my family and other kinds of people. So like this was a practice for me, and I would give that sense of space and that sense of patience for other people as well, because I know I had to develop that in myself, and that took a little bit of time, and other people showed me that. So that's the first thing I would say is be patient for yourself so that you can give that patience for other people, and just recognize that people are just coming from different places there. Yeah. Go ahead, Johnny. You had some?
I was an insufferable shit in high school and in college because I learned about Socrates calling himself the gadfly, and so as a pretentious and some things never change. Little argue boy, I decided to challenge everybody on a lot of different things for a wonderful period of time. Everything was up for grabs to be discussed, and I think that as I matured, as the grapes turned more into vinegar every year, I started becoming embittered over some of the stupid things that I would hear, what I thought were stupid things, and perhaps now I've turned into maybe a higher grade kind of vinegar that you can cook with. I don't know if any of that applies, but now sometimes I really want to know, and I want to hear what some of the what I think are outlandish concepts are. I was at a friend of mine's get together, and his fiance's guru was there. And this guru was a bit of, I refer to some people who are charlatans as Charlies. This person was a bit of a Charlie and was kind of doing a reading and doing like a advice with no information and talking about certain foods being good for different chakras and things like that. And so I was in a spot where I was trying to make a good impression for my friend. I didn't want to be the friend that the fiance brought, who's just going to pick a fight with everybody. And I just sat there and I listened. And then when there were questions, I framed it in terms of, I've never heard that before. Where does that come from? Where can I learn more about that? Because I always thought that was good for you because it has a lot of dietary fiber. I didn't know that it was actually good for that what exactly is a chakra? Things like that. And if you can step back a little bit, and I guess this goes back to our previous caller, if you can step back a little bit and really enjoy the multitude of far out there worldviews, suspending, of course, for that moment, the fact that some people make bad decisions in their lives, harmful decisions for themselves and others, based upon those worldviews. Just really appreciate the creativity of the human mind to try to make connections between things that maybe aren't there, and to build houses of cards upon vague concepts like chakras and energies and quantum stuff. Because again, with a street epistemological approach or an anthropological approach, or just bask in the hot tub of ideas for a little bit and enjoy the fact that, if you will engage with people who have different views from you, far out views from you, sometimes you will have a really interesting time just listening. You'll think of things in a new way. You can reframe your own beliefs in terms of it not being that. That's how I deal with it. And I don't think I got labeled as a Johnny Naysayer at that little get together. I came off as, I think, because I did see these people later, as a person who's generally curious and who wants to know more about what's important to them. And then if I had developed a relationship with this guru person, I might have started along a path of challenging their beliefs in some of those more far out things. Although financially they were dependent upon those beliefs being leaned on hard. That's where I'm at, David. So
yeah. I've had conversations with people of the faith. The Jehovah's Witnesses have been, instead of coming to people's doors, have been calling people, and I had a very long conversation with one of those guys. But it was always, whenever I've engaged with people like this, it's the same bad reasoning, and it's almost like I almost flipped it on him and went, "Hey, can I just argue from the point of that there is a God? Because I think I can actually probably do it better. Like, can we do that so I could have an actual good argument?" Because, bad epistemology just really irks me hard.
David, what's your favorite one? What's your favorite bad argument? I want to hear it that you've heard.
So the favorite bad argument that I hear a lot, that I always have a lot of fun with, is from creation. Look around all of creation, and that is God. Like the watchmaker argument. This one guy used a house, and I asked him. I go, okay, well, great. If everything's created, how do I know if I have only white pebbles in the jar? How do I know they're all white if I don't have something to argue against it? I don't have something that's not white to say that this is this and this is not this. Like, if everything is this, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And they just falter after that. It's like,
the watch is created, the
better.
sand is created, the ocean is created, everything's created. So how do you know what's designed?
Exactly. And he goes, well, how do you know what's designed? I go, it's easy. There's a designer that you go find. I know a house didn't occur naturally because I can go find the person who designed it, but also there are specific things in a house that don't naturally occur naturally.
Right.
I mean, you can point those out. 90-degree angles do not happen in nature very often. They do sometimes, just not a ton.
Yeah.
So you can look at stuff and.
Yeah, David, I think
that's my.
We had somebody call a couple of weeks ago who likes to collect arguments. This show and Atheist Experience, and I know that Truth Wanted as well, are shows where we have a collection of some interesting arguments, some garbage arguments, like the argument from Constellations, which is really just a fancy version of, look at the motherfucking trees and there's your God. But collect them, and you might write down your responses, but collect them, and really, people love talking about themselves, right? And if you can engage in a conversation with somebody on these ideas, do it in a way where and I talk about situational awareness. Some of our our apologist friends and our counter-apologist friends don't know when there's buy-in, right? They just want to pick a fight whenever they can. But I think just making sure that the person you're talking to wants to have this conversation, making sure you keep the tone civil, making sure you keep the tone respectful, and that you advance the conversation until there's a little bit of pushback, and then be very careful. Maybe you take a stop, you take a step back and take a break. And using street epistemology as a guide, engage when you can, and don't engage when you can't, when you're in that emotional space. Stan, any final thoughts on this?
No, just thinking about if somebody's in a sales position, right? Their job is to handle objections with counter points and build a case for you to buy into something, whether it's a product or a service or whatever. And that's not too dissimilar from what you find from Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons. That's why, I actually think that out of all people you could be talking to, they might be the least able to have a real honest dialogue too, because they have their own pressures that they have to deal with within their own community spaces to deal with it. Not saying that obviously people don't change their mind from those conversations, but if you're looking to get mad, that's the surest way to get mad, because they're the people who are least likely to talk about what they honestly feel and more talk about what they're told to say, right? There's a bit of a bias there in the audiences that you might talk to, but I would just say, don't go in with the expectation that you're going to immediately change somebody's mind. Again, just doing that little work piece by piece is probably the best way to have a conversation without totally getting completely blown up and mad by the end of it, because again, chances are, as we said before, you're just not going to change their mind, especially not in a single conversation. So
I think that's about it, David. Last thought for you, David. If you could make it quick, we want to move on to our patrons. Nothing?
Nope.
David? All right. Well, we do appreciate you calling. Call back again with more horror stories from the front. All right. With that said, I am going to let's do our top 5 patrons. I do appreciate your contribution to the ACA. Everything we do goes to the separation of religion and government and the promotion of positive atheism. We put a lot of content on this show, and so we do appreciate your donations. Dan, you want to read off those top 5 patrons for our viewers?
So we got the top 5 patrons. Should I go 5 to 1? Let's do 5 to 1, right? So number 5
like David Letterman.
Yeah, like David Letterman. No. We'll go 1 to 5 because then we got the honorary mentions. So we'll do that first. Okay, number 1, top patron, Eric Tweet. Number 2, CJ Dennis. Number 3, Dingleberry Jackson. Number 4, Balaam's Donkey. Number 5, Paul Leah. And honorary mention, the Great North American Dingaloo. Thank you guys so much for donating to the Patreon for Talk Heathen. Your donations help us make this show happen every week. Johnny and I are volunteers for the Atheist Community of Austin. We don't get paid for this, but we have expenses to run shows like this, like equipment and all kinds of other stuff. So those donations help go towards that. So thank you to everybody who donates on patreon.com/talkheathen to me. Talk Heathen to me. That is the link there.
Not to him.
Not to me or to him or me. No, me.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on that one.
I guess so. All right. Well, we can move on.